2025 was a year I spent trying to get myself back on track. I possess a rather unfortunate combination of traits that lead to wasted days and weeks spent accomplishing nothing. Even when I set my bar as low as write one sentence a day, it's a bar I choose not to hop over. Procrastination, distraction, and seeing goals as obstacles rather than checkpoints all lend their hand in making sure I stay holed up in my bed doom scrolling all the worries away. I could be out there writing the greatest work of fiction, experiencing the thrills of hosting a D&D campaign, sharing my favorite details from games I played in the form of a video. But instead, I lock myself down, shackled to insecurity, doubts that even my closest friends and allies care, all while staring at the molehill I've made a mountain of work. No matter how many times those insecurities and doubts are proven fictitious spawns of my imagination, I can't help but listen to their sweet nothings as they prattle fear into my heart. But this year, 2025, I wanted to escape that. I wanted to escape the hell I've laid my own bed in. I wanted to turn those aforementioned bars into the rungs of a ladder so I could get out of bed, escape the mundanity of every day, reactivate the wrinkled brain that had been smoothened over by the thinnest veil of comfort. So I challenged myself to, if I couldn't do anything else, learn to enjoy something new. So that's what this video is ultimately about. Celebrating the smallest of triumphs and sharing the new games I played and had the pleasure of enjoying this year. And while I did get to play plenty of games, I'll be sticking to the new releases this year. And since it's my video, I'll be counting both early release games and games that got a 1.0 release on Steam, so satisfactory still counts. I'll even be counting games that released outside of this year but are still in development, which covers my basis well enough. Despite the new games I've played, there's still a few that are missing from the library as of the time of this video, so I'll speak a brief piece about them now before moving on to the main course. Of them, Clear Obscure Expedition 33 has piqued my interest the most. Friends have told me it's one hell of a ride and ripe with topics for literary analysis and critical literature theory. Those that know me have heard me mention my bachelor's in creative writing at least once, so I would love to know more about the game, having been set up with high expectations. Hollow Knight Silksong is something I can't play until I've beaten the original, so it has to remain sealed for now. I actually tried playing the original again this year and found it a lot more enjoyable than I did the first go around many years ago, now that I'm more aware of how both Metroidvanias and Dark Souls systems work. Hades 2, on the other hand, is a sequel I can play, having played a ton of the original. And with how many roguelites are occupying my list already, I'll be playing it sooner rather than later. And last but not least, Dispatch. By the time this video comes out, I'll have already started playing it on my stream, twitch.tv/Hookyism, but the window for including it on this list is all but shut. At the very least, it's certainly a top candidate for a longer video essay depending on how I enjoy it. With all the games I've thus far missed out on touched upon, let's get to the main topic of the video. The games I've played. Wow, I really know how to get to a point. Anyways, subscribe if you haven't already. I have longer form essays on a few of the games listed already, like Haste and Abyssus, so don't miss out. The Roguelite section. I'm dubbing this the Roguelite section as a distinct category because it's mostly what I've played this year. I don't know if playing these is a healthy way to cope with my ever-shortening attention span problem, but these games are certainly a better alternative to staring at a desktop monitor. Haste. The Sonic game of my dreams. Haste is possibly the world's first running roguelite. It's unbelievably fun if you covet running fast and keeping momentum like I do. There's a nice flow of building up speed, taking off, and then performing a smooth landing to maintain that speed. This loop by itself is enough to keep me entertained and enthralled, but there's the roguelite elements to spice it all up and enhance the dopamine. You get a variety of speed boosts through items in run as well as buying permanent stats between runs, all as you outrace the apocalypse. Indeed, the inciting incident to the story is that the world itself faces annihilation. And while I won't go too much further into detail, it's a neat little story with some great characters. Another salute for the captain, my captain. My only real criticisms lie in how there aren't any real cohesive set pieces akin to something a Sonic game would set up. Think Metal Harbor in Sonic Adventure 2, where Sonic has to climb up the metal scaffolding to reach the rocket, then skateboard back down to Earth. Everything here is procedurally generated, which is fine, but makes me pining for a fully realized world with unique to themselves locales. but I also get why it's all procedurally generated. If you want a more in-depth review, check out this one I did months ago. Vellum! A roguelite about scribes, colorful spells, and grammar-related powers, Vellum is an over-the-shoulder take on the genre with a great litany of fun to be had. The main themes of the game revolve around literature and color. Each color, or ink, is tied to a class. For example, yellow focuses on critical strikes, while green and orange center themselves around their pets and turrets. Each color gets an ultimate ability and a passive, which you can then mix with any purple ability, the default ink color that doesn't have a class of its own. As for the literature part of the game, it exists in the spine of the game itself. The hub world is a library, all the spell names, spell upgrades, and enemy names are a whole dictionary's worth of literature terms. Hell, even the title of the game is named after a type of paper. It's very fun for someone like me to see how they've chosen their play on words. The gameplay loop itself is a solid experience. Each run lasts around 10 levels, 2 of which are non-combat. At the end of each run, you can choose either to continue the run with ramping difficulty, or end it there and return home. You can also add modifiers similar to Hades' heat system, each modifier adding points to the difficulty score, which the game rewards you for beating at various checkpoints. There's also a unique mode that's set up like a raid, where you fight bosses as a team, and the game even gives you strategies and tips on what to avoid. Thoughts to paper, Vellum displays some great ideas, though I wish runs were more book than chapter. Shape of Dreams. The MOBA roguelite, Shape of Dreams is a wonderfully crafted world of mystery, stars, and one might even say dreams. Having played League of Legends, the stuff of nightmares, for more than 10 years, I immediately got into the groove of what this game was offering. By default, keyboard controls are traditional League controls, right-click to move and aim, QWER to fire off abilities. That's what I've known for as long as I've played MOBAs, and that's what I stuck to. You can play WASD if you wish, just don't ask me how it works. Shape of Dreams takes the notion of character abilities, one of the fundamental design philosophies of the genre, and flips it on its head. Every ability in a character's kit, save their passive, can be removed and replaced with other abilities. Even a character's ultimate ability is dispensable if the player sees fit, and the game offers you a bevy of abilities around every corner. There's abilities for mages, tanks, ADCs, healers, bruisers, you name it. And of these classes I've named, SOD does a great job having a character meant to fulfill each role. Want to play the ADC character? Pick Lacerta. Mage? Pick Ubar. Duelist? Mist. Each character's design is full of color and whimsy that not only help indicate what role they'll play, but they just ooze coolness. My favorite amongst these are Vesper, who takes the Black Knight aesthetic and juices it with the power of the sun. For any League players out there that might be tired of getting curb stomped in solo queue, try this one out. Ball Pit. Ball Pit asks the question, what if we turned Galaga into a roguelite? And it provides a spectacularly fun answer. But firstly, I want to talk about the naming schematic going on, as I think it's worth highlighting. Drawing a natural comparison to the likes of Hunter x Hunter and Spy Family, I like how it divides the concept of a ball pit. When you think of a ball pit, you might think of the corner in a pizza place that's got a ton of plastic balls in a tub, probably filled with cockroaches. With this game, the term is divided to describe the mechanics, the ball, and the setting, the pit, as two separate entities, yet perfectly complementary in telling you what the game is about. Speaking of telling you what the game is about, you shoot balls as you march down a hallway. You get various upgrades to your balls to turn them into lasers, lightning, or make big balls, just to name some. After each run, you return from the pit to harvest the crops. Bet you didn't know this was a farming sim too, did ya? Anyways, you expand your village by planting crops to make resources, constructing buildings which give passive buffs to unlock new characters, and you ping-pong your villagers to harvest and construct it all. A very baller game indeed. The Spell Brigade. A cuter take on the emerging survivor-like genre, the Spell Brigade flavors you as a wizard casting spells to fight off hordes of monsters. If you played something like Vampire Survivors, you'll know the genre isn't too complicated in terms of gameplay. All your spells are automatically cast, so all you're doing on your end is walking around avoiding monsters and gathering XP. Despite the simple premise, these games are addicting. Spell Brigade included. You take a hit from your first level up, it feels amazing. Then you gotta keep chasing that dragon as you get things like spells, spell size upgrades, damage boosts, and a lot more. I try to pick up XP gain upgrades where I can for the long-term investment. Spell Brigade doesn't revolutionize the wheel here by any means, but it certainly learned from the best. My favorite characters are Cavan and Ludwig, who leave behind a trail and swing a giant sword, respectively. I enjoyed my time with it and look forward to seeing its 1.0 release soon enough. Soulstone Survivors. The other Survivor-like game I sunk considerable time into, Soulstone Survivors is rife with features as a fully realized game. Like any other Survivor-like, your main objective is to clear out hordes and waves of enemies while picking up XP. You do so by obtaining abilities, up to 6, that you level up and swap out. Abilities in this game are elementally coded, so getting more of the same element can really pump your damage output. I love playing the Death Knight with his starter weapon that applies Doom. The more damage you deal, the more the purple bar fills up on the enemy's health bar, and when that bar reaches 0, enemies immediately pop. Super satisfying. There's a whole host of characters with amazing themes and abilities that set them apart as unique as they fulfill their fantasy. The Death Knight brings doom to the wicked, commanding his Ebon Knights. The Monkey King is a trickster with his clones, and the Myrmidon leads his fishermen into battle. There's a lot of detail that's gone into how these characters play in respect to their lore, and I can appreciate that. Abyssus. What I haven't gushed about when it comes to Abyssus. I have a long-form video on it already, but for those that may want to know more in short order. You're a deep-sea diver in an FPS roguelite looking for a substance called brine. All of the roguelite classics are here. Permanent upgrades, run modifiers, and a run that promises to be a little different each time you play it. What makes Abyssus different from other roguelites is that you can customize your weapon before the run, and it'll be the only weapon you have throughout it. However, the mods are so vastly different from each other that rather than the 8 weapons you see initially, you have more like 24. And in the run, you can choose from various blessings that change how your bullets work, whether that's adding a burn, chaining lightning, or summoning tentacles. By all means, check out my longer form essay that comes packed with literary analysis, if any of what I just said piques your interest, because I loved this game. PC section. While I call it the PC section of the video, it's more like the miscellaneous category when compared to the amount of roguelites. But dubbing these games under miscellaneous sounds more like a slight against them, so PC section it is. The 100-line Last Defense Academy. Part mystery visual novel and part tactical RPG, the 100-line Last Defense Academy is the brainchild between the creators of Danganronpa and Zero Escape / AI The Somnium Files. While it's much more Danganronpa coded on the surface, between the character sprites and especially the paid-by-the-word dialogue, each author gets their chance to play their greatest hits as the game progresses. You play as Takumi Sumino, a boy who, along with a select number of classmates, is chosen to defend Earth from alien invaders in the form of grid-based combat. And this grid combat is surprisingly fun, with the goal in most cases being to chain kills together to extend your turn. Perhaps it's a sign I should look into other games of the genre as well. Of course, the other half of the game, the mystery visual novel, I can't unravel for you here, but know you're in for a roller coaster of twists, turns, and wacky hijinks. And just when you think you know everything there is to know, the game keeps turning the tables. I'll have a longer dissection of it out eventually, but it's one of my favorite games from this year, as flawed as some of the writing is. Satisfactory. Satisfactory was my first foray into the automation genre in 2022, and while I had fun, I didn't quite know what I was doing. I was the spitting image of a caveman banging rocks together, though it was more like iron and copper ores together. This year, 2025, I really wanted to sit down and learn the genre, so I got to work. I learned how to smelt ore, send it into the constructor, pass it through the assembler, and create the factory of my dreams. I loved seeing my progress over time evolve from conveyor spaghetti to well-refined factories. And Satisfactory lets you play with conveyor belts in so many ways. I had just as much fun reconstructing my main site as I did following the objectives and getting those hits of dopamine sending stuff through the satellite. I'm not used to retracing my steps all that much, but Satisfactory did remind me how out of my depth I am when it comes to organization and reorganization. Oh, and the movement in this game is so smooth too. I love the Black Ops 3-esque movement of bunny hopping and sliding to maintain momentum. Sometimes it's faster than using any of the vehicles and other modes of transportation that you get. Overall, Satisfactory is a really fun and easygoing time, especially if you choose the beginner planet like I did. Though I imagine there's some harder planets where survival is just as big a factor as mining. For my first foray into the genre, I'd say the game was quite satisfactory. Musume, Pretty Derby. Sigh, I guess I'll talk about the horse racing gacha because I really enjoy it. On the surface, it may seem like a cutesy game about real-life horses being reincarnated into anime girls, but the grind goes much, much deeper than that. Beyond beating an Uma's career mode, you're aiming to imitate the real-life practices of horse breeders by inbreeding and passing down as many traits as possible to your progeny so they can start with higher stats and get more skills. Your aim, if you're playing competitively, is to create the most statted out, kitted out Uma to take on the monthly Champions Meet, where you race other players' Umas and try to win. It's thrilling seeing your Uma in action against others, and victory always tastes so sweet. But there is one dark cloud hanging over how competitively viable your Uma can be. Unless you have bucket loads of money to spend on the car system in this game, there's a definite ceiling your Uma reaches outside of the 1 in a million run where you hit everything you need. In order to get one of these cards to full power, you have to pull it 5 times from the gacha system, where any card you would want to pull has well beyond a less than 1% chance of appearing. And while Cygames is certainly generous in giving out free currency, I think it's a bit ridiculous charging $22 for one 10-pack of cards. It almost makes Pokemon scalpers look reasonable, and that's a pretty low bar. The point is, whales are going to have vastly superior decks to yours, and by extension better statted Umas. I won't let that detract from the excellent character exploration on display though. Each Uma has a rather unique personality, and even the ones I was less than thrilled to pull, I felt more attached to after playing their story. I don't plan on getting into other gachas, but this one has been fun enough to continue doing dailies for, at least for the time being. All in all, really fun time, and I will continue to enjoy it for as long as I'm playing it. Peak. Peak is rather simple. Climb, and if you don't, fall to your death. Freeze to death, poison to death, fog to death. If you can do that, you'll survive. Though, I will admit, a lot harder to do than I'm letting on. Your stamina and health bar are one and the same, so any damage you sustain is reflected in your ability to climb. It's such a simple yet smart way to merge 2 resources into one. You'll reconsider every jump, every climb that almost looks viable, but then again, there's always a hand to help you in co-op. And this was definitely a game made for co-op. Between bumbling for directions and having a hearty laugh as your closest friend plummets into the abyss. I don't imagine I have to go too far into detail as it's already a well-known game, but I enjoyed my brief stint playing it with pals. The Nintendo section. This year we got the Switch 2, which for better or worse continued right where the original left off. While I'm not asking Nintendo to reinvent the wheel for the umpteenth time, this is certainly the first time a Nintendo console has felt like a direct sequel. Which I suppose was the point. Between the relatively same controller schematics, with a few additional buttons and a mouse functionality, which is admittedly cool, and menu layout being a near one-to-one outside of a few new icons, it would seem most of the renovation has gone towards upping the processing power. Not a bad thing considering that's been Nintendo's weakest area when it comes to games for as long as I've known them. But the upped price tag starts to hurt a bit looking at the bigger picture. At the same time, Nintendo's had its usual selection of fresh bangers this year too. So let's take a look, shall we? Mario Kart World. Mario Kart, it's not a franchise I hold especially dear, but if there was one thing I've really enjoyed throughout the years, it's the attention to details for things going on outside of the racetrack. I especially loved it in the N64's version where you could oftentimes go and get a closer look at said things. In Mario Kart World, that's the entire point, and I was immediately sold. There's so much going on in this racing kart island, From NPCs bumbling about on their daily drives, to the giant set pieces that remind me of a large-scale amusement park like Universal or Disneyland. In the real world, where sometimes it's just hard to go somewhere and escape even when you need a break, there's a certain euphoria I feel driving at cruise speed along the island, observing every nook and cranny filled in by someone's imagination. It's certainly as close as I can get at the moment to taking a vacation, and I can appreciate it for that aspect alone. The music selection is also phenomenal here, not only with every track having its own bop, but there's a cavalcade of songs from all the Mario eras too, remixed to jazzy perfection. I feel an odd peace as I'm driven through time by a franchise whose silly plumber mascot I've identified with since my earliest years, even when a blue shell sneaks up behind me and... Donkey Kong Bonanza. I've waited so long for a new 3D Donkey Kong, and this was the year I finally got it. While it's certainly much different from DK's N64 outing, an outing I truly hold near and dear to my heart, flaws and all, that doesn't make it any less fun in the slightest. Turning your brain off to destroy your environment is mindless fun. DK is a wrecking ball that smashes every bit of wall, floor, and enemy to dust. The game makes sure to reward you with constant treasure maps, currency, and the occasional secret lair a banana is resting in. The story is fun, and I think the experimental voice acting that we've seen in this game in the likes of Zelda helps with characterization. It's a trend I hope Nintendo keeps leaning towards in the future. Lord knows games like Pokemon need it. Pauline's VA knocked it out of the park. Between the quiet moments when her and DK are snoozing, and when she gets loud to help DK, I think Pauline ended up being a great addition to the DK crew. If they're still around, that is. All in all, I'd still give everything for something more similar to DK64, but this game is certainly worthy of every bit of praise it gets. Pokemon Legends ZA. Pokemon Legends ZA was my first time with a Pokemon Legends game. After having heard of how innovative Legends Arceus was for the franchise, I decided to give this game a shot. It didn't exactly blow my expectations out of the water, but it still made for itself a rather nice name, compared to the disaster that was released Scarlet and Violet. The most interesting experiment they underwent for this game was using only one city as the game's setting. It's an intriguing endeavor, as one of the core components of exploration in Pokemon is not just the new creatures you meet, but the various locales scattered throughout a region. There's some buildings you can go inside, but a lot of the shops are simply menus, a complaint I had with Scarlet and Violet. It's the biggest city Pokemon has seen in its franchise, but there's still plenty of empty space, and not quite the jam-packed metropolis I was hoping it'd be. Fortunately, a lot of the Mega Evolutions, perhaps the most important selling point of the game, I have bought into. Hawlucha now looks beefier with a more flashy costume, Malamar is more sinister than ever, and Victory Bell is a complete goofball. They even got me to laugh at Barbaricle's devil horns, and that's my least favorite Pokemon ever. So, if anything, the game has given me an existential crisis on who my new least favorite is. Final thoughts. Despite the abundance of roguelites on this list, I had a pretty wide selection from the genre buffet this year. Still rather small in the grand scope of things, but it's an endeavor I'm glad to have started as I've become more aware of a growing personal flaw. In this era of my life where I have to turn on the TV to escape doom scrolling, and even that's too long for the short-term dopamine crave, I have to keep fighting the urge to go for the easiest, most non-fulfilling indulgence. Kick the bad habit of wanting to start at the destination without taking the journey. Looking for the answer instead of pondering the question. Giving up and settling for what I've got instead of what I could make. It's simply not a life worth living if I reduce myself only to what I consume. Videos like these are the proof I need to convince myself that I've lived, and will continue to do so. I want to share everything I've learned with you. And I know I'll still have the days where I've forgotten everything I just said and will have abandoned the passion I'm feeling now. But when I inevitably knock myself off the ladder, I can catch myself falling just a few bars higher than before. Thanks for watching. Whew, that got pretty intense, didn't it? Sometimes you start off writing game reviews, then find yourself in the midst of an epic monologue. I really do mean it when I say thanks for watching. Adoration is one of my vanities, and as much as I hate to admit it, a big goal in doing what I do, putting aside the trying to feel something vibe. For now, I'll just ask that you subscribe and peruse some of my other videos. The Abyssus video is a good place to start. Here's to 2026.